Test, test, test. Test, test. Test, test. Test 1, 2. Test, test, test. Test, test. Test 1, 2. 1, 2, test. Test, test, test. Test, test. Test 1, 2. 1, 2, test. Test, test. Test 1, 2. Test, test. Test 1, 2. And there's no separate control on the recorder to feed it through.
Actually, there's a button for saving source, but either way.
Test, test. Test 1, 2. You know what? Wireless or something. Test, test, test. Test 1, 2. 1, 2, test. Test, test. 2, test, test, test.
Hey, Kev. Can you hear me?
Hey, Kavan. Yep. Can hear you fine.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Test, test, test. Test 1, 2. What's this dongle that's hanging off the side over here? Oh, that's just power. Oh. Yeah, yeah, no. No, I was just wondering if there was something on there that. So you obviously connected to the floor. Right. Right, it's definitely. Hey, we're definitely pulling in the sound from the press feed that's going in. So far, it's just come on. No. And your headphones work because you're playing when you play it back.
Are we gonna need, we're not gonna need this liquor. I brought it anyway, right?
I set the thing to 5 minutes. So I don't know
Good.
who's gonna show up.
Right.
I mean, hopefully nobody. Hey, Arnie, how are you?
What's going on, guys? Hi, Arnie. How are you? Michael, good morning. Good morning. How are you, buddy? Good, thank you.
You don't change any settings when you go somewhere else, right?
No, I thought it was just checking.
The girls are here.
Something like press,
Right, yeah, that's what I was thinking, but also in different environments, I didn't know if you had to make changes and just, forgot to. Oh, really?
Hi, Bill. No. No. Don't smile.
No, forget it, I gave up. Because they may call tomorrow. He said we're having a special meeting.
We had, my daughter teaches in the city. She was out last weekend. She goes, "Oh, I need to borrow a football jersey." I said, "For what?" She goes, "Oh, me and my co-teacher, he has a referee's uniform. So I'm going to dress up as a football player and he's going to be a referee." She forgets to take the jersey. So yesterday morning, I got up and I grabbed the smallest, because they're all oversized jersey, the smallest jersey I have, real football jersey, brought it into work and went to her apartment in Queens. As I'm getting ready to drive from here, I realized.
Kevin, can you hear me? Muscarella. Yeah, Muscarella here. Okay. Is that any better? Let's see what I put earlier. Hello? You there? No good? No good, Muscarella? No. Kevin, any better? Vin Muscarella. Yeah? Any better, Kev? Muscarella, any better? Apparently not.
Hey, Vin, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, who's this? Devon?
Fine, yeah, I can hear you just fine. I mean, it sounds a little bit like you're in a tunnel, but for the most part, I can hear you fine.
Okay. I'm still here. Devon can hear me apparently.
Sure, can you hear me, Kev? All right. Vinny, you messed it up for everybody.
Apparently, I have that tendency. Yes, I'm here.
Kev, is mine okay? Oh, okay. Thanks, Kev.
Right. Good morning. We are going to reconvene the legislative meeting of October 25th. Let's start things off. We don't need to do the roll, although we will have a roll on the item in a few moments, but start off with the Pledge of Allegiance and ask Legislator Drucker to lead us, please. We have one item. It is item 385, 2021, a resolution pursuant to Section 305 of the County Government Law of Nassau County to reconsider and approve items vetoed by the county executive in relation to the 2022 Nassau County budget. Moved by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Legislator Ford. That's before us. I have some brief remarks, and obviously I'll open it up to any other legislator who would like to speak. Nassau County is overtaxing, over-budgeting, and overspending. We're doing the same thing that the New York State Comptroller has repeatedly criticized school districts from doing. The $50 million tax cut in our amendment would provide relief to our residents who are struggling, particularly now when they have their school tax bills, many of whom are seeing large increases as a result of shifts caused by reassessment. We have an opportunity today to override the veto and provide that relief. Nassau County is collecting fees that have been ruled illegal by a New York State Supreme Court judge. I don't know this, but we may have to refund those fees eventually if that decision is upheld in the appellate division. It is irresponsible to continue to collect those fees and to budget for them. We have an opportunity today to override the veto and provide $100 million of relief to our residents. This is the right thing to do governmentally and budget-wise. Patronage. The county executive vetoed our cuts to patronage. In this county, in which it's difficult to get someone on the phone at the Department of Assessment to answer calls, in this county in which the Consumer Affairs is months behind with thousands of renewals pending, in this county in which DPW does not have enough staff to maintain proactively the sumps, in this county in which our correctional officers are being forced to work 16-hour shifts, it is unconscionable to have 7 public relations people staffed in the constituent affairs. It is also inappropriate for outside counsel to receive $7 million more in this budget while increasing the county attorney's budget. Again, we have an opportunity to cut this patronage by overriding the veto. Lastly, the county executive proposed raising taxes in 2023, 2024, and 2025 by $130 million. We have an opportunity to clearly state that those tax increases will not take place if we override the veto. For all of those reasons, I urge our colleagues in the legislature on both sides of the aisle to vote for the override. Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Just a very few, very brief remarks. One of the points made by the county attorney was that the legislature doesn't have the authority to deal with revenue items, which raises a very interesting question of what is it that's our job over here? What are we doing here altogether? That kind of makes not a great deal of sense. Another point, we're talking about, we have the county executive veto talks about NIFA estimates, and NIFA's saying that we're being overly optimistic in terms of sales tax. I'd point out that this is the same NIFA that a year ago insisted on doing a refinance, probably unnecessarily, saying that they're projecting a 20% decrease in sales tax, 20% when the actual number for the year was less than 8% and trending better. It was mathematically impossible, and we said so at the time. Nonetheless, it was forced through. They don't have a lot of credibility. It's certainly not with us. And finally, I just want to say very briefly on the fees. When these fees for the real estate things were enacted, real estate recordings and so forth, our friends on the minority voted against imposing those fees. I voted, by the way, with you on refusing to enact those fees. When we repealed it, it was done unanimously, as I recall, and several of you congratulated the majority on seeing the light and doing the right thing because they made no sense. And you were consistent with your earlier vote. I look forward to seeing you being consistent once again this morning and voting to override those fees, which still make no sense. And the points that you made at the time, when they were enacted and when we repealed, they're still valid. And they're still correct. So, please be consistent. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
If I may, Rich?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. So let's just be clear on where we are today. The majority has decided to move forward with these with this override vote, knowing full well, based on the last budget meeting we had, we heard now from NYFA, the county executive has presented a balanced, fair, fiscally responsible budget. And the one thing that you guys are just going to continue to put your heads in the sand about is the fact that remains that NYFA is still here. None of us like the fact that NYFA is still here. So it should be everybody's fiscally responsible duty as responsibility to the taxpayers of this county to get NYFA out of the control period and move on from a fiscal oversight control body as quickly as possible. This budget does not do that. These amendments do not do. I'm sorry. These amendments to the budget do not do that. What they do is create an atmosphere where we're going to see, very similar to what I think Legislator Rhodes and maybe even Legislator Ferretti had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, where we're going to have a proverbial gun to our head, and NYFA is going to demonstrate to us you need to cut or make revenue changes in order for the budget to be balanced and move forward. That's going to happen. That will happen. And the fact is, we're going to continue to put our heads in the sand and pretend like that doesn't happen and grandstand and have all these political gestures to try to score points with taxpayers. Taxpayers want a fiscally sound budget. Every single household in this county, residents know that revenues need to meet expenditures. And at the end of the day, NYFA demonstrated, and to quote the chairman of NYFA, Adam Barsky, correctly, these amendments present an unbalanced budget. Now, like it or not, the sales tax may come in higher. Who knows? Things may come in a little bit less on the expenditure side. Like it or not, that is NYFA's belief. And we knew that. That's why we didn't go along with your amendments when they presented to us several weeks ago, because we felt that without the conversations with NYFA, it presents to this county a lost opportunity that we're going to see, quite frankly, them reject the budget, and we're going to go right back down the same path where the groups that we try to protect. Pat Boyle was here a couple of days ago. The groups that we try to protect, as in terms of youth, MTA, V, firefighters, these groups are all going to be on the chopping block if this budget goes forward as amended. And to me, it just seems like we're going to continue to be reckless and fiscally irresponsible. I'm very disappointed in the majority today, because you could have chosen to do the right thing and not call this vote. The county executive has presented a fiscally balanced budget. We believe that budget is going to be accepted by NYFA. We could take shots at NYFA and say that they're not credible, but the ultimate responsibility is that they're here and they're doing the fiscal job, like it or not. And we have our differences with NYFA as well, We think that sometimes they're being a little bit too conservative and things that we would like to see move forward. But they're here. And quite frankly, they've been here for 21 years. And to me, it just seems unconscionable that we're just going to put our head in the sand and pretend that they're not here. When we know full well, we went through this exercise before when we had an unbalanced budget. And we know full well they have already told us that the budget as amended is unbalanced. It's fiscally irresponsible. It's very disappointing that the majority continues to go down this path and present fiscally irresponsible ideas that the control board, which we may not like, has already demonstrated to us they are not going to pass muster. So really, this today, press conferences seem to be more about political maneuvering and gesturing than what's best for the taxpayers of this county. As a taxpayer of this county, we should be focused on making sure every single person knows that our budget is balanced. And though we may not be able to give them the greatest tax cut, I would love to cut taxes in half. We all pay the highest taxes in the county. Our residents are fiscally drained with the taxes that we're paying in this county. But at the same time, they're not going to want to see programs being cut. They're not going to want to see potential cuts to the police department. They're not going to want to see that either. So we have to roll up our sleeves and do what's fiscally responsible. And I'm encouraging my colleagues on my side of the aisle to reject this proposal today and uphold the county executive's veto. Thank you.
Legislator Rhodes.
I respectfully disagree with the minority leader. NIFA has not been a financial oversight board for 3.5 years. NIFA has been a political board that has been carrying water for the current administration and the Democrats for 3.5 years. We've long since stopped worrying about what is good financially for the county. They have been worrying about what is good politically for the county executive. And I am tired of being told to ignore what is in front of our faces, which we can easily recognize. The deficiencies and the opportunities that exist in this budget for the sake of complying with what NIFA is telling us to comply with. You know, we've seen over the course, the county executive is taking credit for her fiscal management over the last several years, over the last year. Let's take a look, though, at how we got to where we are in a budget standpoint. She took $98 million in CARES Act funds while 1 in 6 businesses closed during the pandemic. Funds that could have been used to support businesses, could have been used to support residents that were suffering, and took that money to use it for salaries and benefits, telling us in the legislature that we were running a deficit when in reality we were running a surplus. $98 million. Misforecast intentionally, in my opinion. Sales tax revenue. The special revenue fund that was created by this legislature has $345 million in it. That $345 million is a testament to and is a direct reflection of how badly misforecast revenue was last year. And for the administration to take the position that the legislature has no role in looking at reality, as we tried to do last year in our budget amendments, the reality of the fiscal picture, and project what our sales tax revenue was going to be in an accurate fashion, is, to me, completely absurd. The case law that's relied upon by the county attorney is not precedential. The decision that's not presidential is based on an erroneous interpretation of a statute in the city of Buffalo, which is completely different from our charter. It is not realistic. That opinion was not correct when they tried to advance that opinion last year. It is no more correct this year, and we have the ability, and I would suggest the duty, to reject that. And if that is the kind of work that is produced by our county attorney's office, Who knows? Maybe we should have more outside counsel after all. But I digress. NYFA, OMB, and the current administration, in my opinion, worked together to mislead this legislature last year with respect to those revenue projections. We took $345 million away out of the pockets of taxpayers through property taxes if we had accurately forecast the $345 million that we received in sales tax revenue. And maybe it wouldn't have been the entire $345 million. I don't know that you could have projected that the economy would have recovered as well as it recovered. But we knew that we were not going to see a decrease in 2021 of 20% over what we saw in 2020. We knew with our own eyes that those sales tax revenues were going to rebound, but as a result, we took additional money in property tax out of the pockets of taxpayers to make up the difference that was created by the misforecasting in sales tax revenue by NYFA, OMB, and the current administration, in my opinion, in coordination with each other. That $345 million was also used to justify nearly $1.5 billion in borrowing to achieve debt savings, creating a further cushion that should be given back to taxpayers, saddling future generations with a staggering amount of debt. Now we have an opportunity to take some of the money that resulted from the bad decisions that have been made by this administration, coupling it with dollars that we know are being misforecast in sales tax revenue for this year, not based on our own opinions, but based on OMB's forecasting, based on the Independent Office of Legislative Budget Review's forecasting, based upon Moody's forecasting, and actually have accurate projections, which are still more conservative than Moody's, accurate projections of sales tax revenue, which can be used to provide additional relief to residents and pay back some of the money that we improperly took from them. We have a responsibility as a legislature, and we have a responsibility as a government to take not $1 more out of the pockets of taxpayers than is necessary to fund the legitimate operations of government. And this administration, and unfortunately it appears as though the minority, has no compunction to do anything of the sort. Otherwise, they would be supporting this veto override today. As we just heard from the minority leader, they have no intention of doing so. Funding retroactive pay with unassigned fund balance. These are monies that residents have already been taxed for. Yet, the current administration wants us to tax these residents to pay for these, to pay for retroactive pay effectively a second time. Makes absolutely no sense. There's no reason why we should be doing it. It's completely inappropriate. Council fees, vacant but funded positions. We have 400 individuals or 400 positions that have been funded as part of this budget that have remained unfunded. They were unfunded last year. It was absorbed as savings. Either these positions should be filled, and we should be having enough people in the Department of Public Works to be able to actually maintain our sumps and roadways. We should be having enough people in Consumer Affairs to actually handle the backlog. We should be having enough people in the Department of Assessment that they might actually be able to answer a phone. Heck, you could have people in the county executive's office so they might be able to answer a telephone when somebody calls, instead of getting an endless series of phone prompts and leaving voicemails, as my office has had to do on occasion. Using those positions as an opportunity to absorb savings in this budget and absorb a cushion in this budget is not serving the taxpayers well. You know, the county executive's refusal to remove an additional 7 public relations persons in her office, or actually outside of her office, while we don't have enough staff to be able to handle, as the presiding officer alluded to, We don't have enough staff to be able to fix the sumps, to fix the roadways, to answer the telephones and other critical departments, just strikes me as being absurd. The county executive's office doesn't need another 7 people to spin what's going on in this administration. We need people to actually do work. And the money could be better spent doing something else, and there's an opportunity for savings there. And then to turn around and delay, to tell residents, and I know that Legislator Ferretti is going to cover this, so I'm just going to mention it, to turn around and tell residents that we don't have room in the budget after all of this, not to make a serious effort at rodent control in this county. Just adds insult to injury that is purely unacceptable. So I would encourage all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to stop. Take a look at what's happening here and take a look at what you're about to do. $120 million in tax relief to our residents. $100 million in fee relief to our residents. After 70% of homes in my district are paying more in school and property taxes as a result of the reassessment, after being overtaxed over the course of the last year as a result of the poor decision-making by this administration in coordination with NYFA and in coordination with the minority in the legislature, it is time for us to return some of this money to the pockets of our taxpayers. We have the opportunity to do that, and if my colleagues on the minority refuse to override this veto, it will be them that own these fees. It will be them that refuse to provide tax relief to their residents. It's unconscionable, it's irresponsible, and I would encourage all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to stop the games, provide the relief to residents that they need and deserve, and that we have an opportunity to afford to them. Thank you.
Legislator Ferretti.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I think we need to remind the county executive and the minority that NYFA, those board members, are not elected. They're not elected by the residents of Nassau County. You are. And I think that we need to remind both the county executive and minority that they need to start listening to the residents. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, but about 2 weeks ago I was watching on Facebook a forum that was held in Hicksville, and Legislator Walker was there, as well as Legislator Bino and Legislator Drucker, and Legislator Schaefer, I think, was there as well. And one of the moderators talked about a poll they conducted in the area. I guess it was probably in Hicksville, Syosset, and Westbury, in the area. And the most important issues to the residents that answered that poll. Number 1 were taxes. No surprise. Number 2 was the Hicksville revitalization. And number 3 were rats. Number 3 were rats. Wasn't a surprise to me. Maybe it was a surprise to some of you. But just going down the line, obviously property taxes are something that residents are very in tune with. And to hide behind this NYFA opinion, which, I mean, to give any credence to anything NYFA says at this point, is a joke. NYFA is not an elected board. NYFA is a political body at this point. We all know it. We can pretend it's not the case, but we all know it. And to hide behind it, I think, is something that I'm disappointed in, especially with all the talk about political banter, all we've had to hear over the last 10 years about the fees. We know these fees are illegal. Fiscal responsibility, this budget that the county executive put forward relies on unconstitutional and illegal fees. One day, like it or not, the fees are going to be gone. The question is when? Well, what if they're gone in 6 months? This budget is counting and relying on those fees. That's one of the reasons they need to come out. NYFA and the minority and the county executive just are ignoring that possibility. But it's a real possibility. And it's something I'm asking you to consider before you take your vote. I want to address something in the justification for the veto that really irritated me. When the county executive so disingenuously acts as if our amendment to reduce the illegal amount that the red light camera fees are is some way going to defund the police. I mean, is that a joke? Does she think anyone in Nassau County believes that nonsense? First of all, less than a year ago, she got in front of a camera and said she's not opposed to defunding the police, number one. Number two, our budget amendments and our budget that we passed completely funds the police with that fee out. So it did irritate me to read that, and I don't think anyone in Nassau County is buying it. And maybe it's just guilt over the fact that she's on the record as saying that she is not opposed to defunding the police. But that is not a justification for vetoing the red light camera reduction in the fees. Again, fiscal responsibility. And I know Legislator Rhodes touched on this. But I got to respond to the minority leader's comments. I mean, to talk about playing politics. A year ago, we sat here and listened to nonsense about sales tax being reduced 20%. We all knew it was nonsense, okay? 2 months later, the numbers were in and the county executive was already saying she was wrong. But why'd she do that? She did that to have a pot of money to sit on in an election year. And now we're all going to sit here and pretend that this is political, taking a surplus and giving it back to the residents? I mean, come on. Come on. Let's get real. In addition to the tax cut we proposed, what you're doing today is not only saying no to this $50 million tax cut, but it's saying yes to the county executive's planned tax hikes over the next 4 years. Those tax hikes are going to be on you if you don't vote to amend that, and the county executive. These fees are going to be on you. No one on this side of the aisle. And it's not necessary. The money's there. We all know it. It's there. It's dollars and cents. Okay, let's talk rats. This is a quality of life issue. We're dealing with it. Arnie, I know it's in your community. Legislator Bino, it's in her community. It's in all of our communities. It's being caused by the negligence of this administration not maintaining the sumps, the water basins, and the Nassau property. We have an obligation to fix this. Now, I know the county executive in her memorandum said that she's going to allocate money to it, although she can't do it in this year's budget. Well, number one, what that's telling me is that the 3 extra deputy county executives that she has that the previous administration did not have is more important than quality of life for the residents, or the 7 additional PR people she has are more important than quality of life issues. Which, by the way, I just learned a few minutes ago, is more PR positions than the President of the United States has. That's more important than eradicating a rodent infestation we all have in our communities, that when residents were asked at a forum, what are the most important issues to you this election? Number 3 was rats. If those patronage petitions are more important to you than eradicating this problem, then I think you know how you got to vote. But I hope it's not. You know, and just my last comment, because this county attorney opinion just keeps getting worse and worse. Going to what Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell was saying. Not only now can we not amend the revenue, but we can't amend fees. Really? That's what the county attorney put their name to? I mean, we're elected representatives. We're letting NYFA do it, but as elected representatives, we can't do it. That's a shame. So I would ask that you support these amendments. They're the right thing for the residents. They're the thing that these amendments are what we were elected to do. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, then I'm going to call for a vote, and I'll ask the clerk to read the roll call, please. Roll call. Voice vote. Not a voice vote. What's the correct term? Roll call vote, yeah.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Deputy Presiding Officer Howard Coppell. Alternate Deputy Presiding Officer Denise Ford. Legislator Sheila Bino. Legislator Carrier Salage.
Nay.
Legislator Debbie Muley. Legislator C. William Gaylord III.
Yes.
Thank you. Legislator Vincent Muscarella.
Yes.
Legislator Ellen Birnbaum. Legislator Delia Dirigi-Whitten. Legislator James Kennedy. Legislator Thomas McKevitt. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you. Legislator John Ferretti.
Yes?
Legislator Arnold Drucker.
No.
Legislator Rosemarie Walker. Legislator Joshua Lafazan.
No.
Legislator Stephen Rhodes. Minority Leader Kavan Abrahams.
No.
Presiding Officer Richard Nicolello.
Yes.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The vote, as I see it here, is 11-8.
It's 11 votes to override, 8 votes not to override. Therefore, the vote fails since you need 13 votes to override.
That is correct.
Motion to adjourn? Moved by Legislator Ford, seconded by Legislator Walker. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously.